Got it.
Batman Early Days, Before the Night. Earth 1. Saga 1, Gods, Monsters, and Mortals, Part 1, Mortals. Part 1, the Gotham Natural History Museum. Long before Firefly, before the Huntress, before Jack the Ripper, before the Assassin Contract. There was a Batman that Gotham barely knew. His suit was simple, his gadgets were limited, his reputation didn't exist. Most criminals still believed he was only a rumor. Rain poured over Gotham City. The Gotham Natural History Museum had closed hours ago. Inside, several armed thieves carefully packed ancient artifacts into wooden crates. "Come on," one of them whispered. "The security system's offline." Another laughed. "Easiest score we've had all year." A loud crash echoed through the dinosaur exhibit. The criminals spun around. "What was that?" Silence. One of them slowly raised his flashlight. Its beam passed over towering dinosaur skeletons. Nothing. Another step, then another sound. A cape drifted through the darkness. "What the?" The lights suddenly went out. The museum fell silent. The first thief disappeared. His flashlight clattered across the marble floor. The others looked around in panic. Where'd he go? A batarang flew through the darkness, knocking a pistol from another robber's hand. "Someone's here!" A deep voice answered from the shadows. "I'm not someone." Batman stepped into the faint moonlight filtering through the skylight. "I'm your worst mistake." The thieves opened fire. Batman vanished behind the skeleton of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Gunfire echoed through the museum. Batman swung from a display cable, kicking one robber into another. A third charged with a crowbar. Batman disarmed him with a quick strike and threw him into a display case. Within minutes, the museum was quiet again. Police sirens approached. Batman disappeared before they arrived. The officers found the robbers tied together beneath the enormous dinosaur skeleton. One officer stared upward. He really exists. Part 2, Alfred Stryker. Weeks later, Batman investigated a series of industrial murders connected to Gotham Chemical Works. Every witness mentioned the same man, Alfred Stryker, owner, businessman, murderer. Batman infiltrated the chemical plant just after midnight. The factory was nearly abandoned. Only Stryker and a handful of armed guards remained. Stryker smiled when Batman appeared. "So, the Bat?" "I've heard stories." Batman walked toward him. "The workers you killed deserved better." "They were stealing from me," Stryker replied coldly. Batman shook his head. "They wanted proof of your crimes." Stryker suddenly pulled a revolver. Batman knocked it away. The fight spread across the catwalks above enormous chemical vats. Steam filled the room. Metal groaned beneath their feet. Stryker grabbed a steel pipe and swung wildly. Batman ducked and countered. Stryker stumbled backward. His heel caught the edge of the catwalk. Batman reached forward. For a brief second, their hands almost met. The metal railing broke. Stryker screamed as he plunged into a massive vat of chemicals. The liquid exploded upward. Batman shielded his face. Then, silence. Only bubbling chemicals remained. Batman stared into the vat. "I tried." He remained there for several seconds before leaving as police sirens echoed outside. Unknown to everyone, something moved beneath the chemicals. Part 3, Dr. Death. Months passed. Batman had become more experienced, more confident, more feared. Then Gotham met something even stranger than Batman. Dr. Carl Helfern, a brilliant scientist whose obsession with chemical experimentation had destroyed his sanity. Now calling himself Dr. Death. His victims weren't robbed, they weren't kidnapped, they were transformed. Helfern tested experimental toxins on innocent people, leaving them horribly disfigured. Batman tracked him to an abandoned medical laboratory beneath Gotham. The smell of chemicals filled every room. Dr. Death smiled beneath his grotesque protective mask. "You've come to witness perfection." Batman looked around. Rows of frightened captives, medical equipment, experimental compounds. "This ends tonight." Dr. Death laughed. "Does it?" He threw several chemical flasks toward Batman. The room filled with poisonous smoke. Batman wrapped part of his cape around his mouth and charged forward. Dr. Death swung a metal scalpel. Batman dodged, a punch, a kick, another strike. Dr. Death reached for a syringe. Batman knocked it away with a batarang. The syringe shattered. Its contents spilled across the floor. Dr. Death lunged one final time. Batman swept his legs out from beneath him. The doctor crashed into his own equipment. Police arrived moments later to find Dr. Death restrained, alongside enough evidence to convict him for dozens of crimes. Batman stood in the shadows overlooking the scene. Criminals are changing. The mob still rules Gotham. But something worse is coming. People willing to become monsters. Part 4, Epilogue. The memory faded. The present returned. The final offer. Penguin's floating criminal empire. Batman stood before the massive office doors. Months of investigations, dozens of arrests, countless nights. Everything had led here. Firefly. The Huntress. Jacob Packer. The assassin contract. Every clue, every fight, every sacrifice. Behind these doors waited Oswald Cobblepot. Batman clenched his fist. No more running, no more hiding. He drove his boot forward. The doors burst inward. Wood splintered. The office beyond disappeared into darkness. Batman stepped across the threshold. The hunt for Penguin had finally reached its end. To be continued. End of Batman Early Days, Before the Night. GCPD Report, Volume 2, Number 4, Evidence Archive. Recorded by Captain James Gordon. Gotham City Police Department, Major Crimes Division. Earth 1. Saga 1, Gods, Monsters, and Mortals. Part Mortals. Date 9:08 p.m. Recording Captain James Gordon. This is Captain James Gordon. Tonight's recording isn't about a new investigation. It's about old ones. The evidence archives have become disorganized over the years, and with the increase in major criminal investigations, I've decided to personally oversee the reorganization of several important case files. Some cases are closed, some remain active, some are simply reminders of how much Gotham has changed. ARC Case 01, Gotham Natural History Museum robbery. This incident occurred during Batman's earliest known appearances. At the time, many officers believed the Batman was little more than an urban legend. Responding officers arrived after reports of gunfire and vandalism. Instead of finding an active robbery, they found every suspect restrained inside the museum. Evidence recovered included 6 stolen historical artifacts, 4 handguns, 2 crowbars, rope and climbing equipment, 1 damaged display case, multiple unidentified boot prints. No fingerprints belonging to Batman were recovered. Witnesses gave conflicting descriptions. Some claimed he flew, others claimed he disappeared. One suspect insisted Batman came out of a dinosaur. Needless to say, that statement wasn't considered reliable. The stolen artifacts were returned to the museum. All suspects were convicted. Archive Case 2, Alfred Stryker, business owner, industrialist, primary suspect in multiple murders involving Gotham Chemical Works. The case ended at one of Stryker's processing plants. Responding officers found signs of a violent altercation across several catwalks. Recovered evidence included a discarded revolver, blood samples matching Alfred Stryker, damaged safety railings, multiple impact marks, chemical contamination throughout the facility. Witness testimony indicates Stryker fell into one of the plant's chemical vats during the confrontation. Despite extensive searches, no body was ever recovered. For legal purposes, Alfred Stryker remains listed as deceased. Should new evidence emerge, the case will be reopened. Archive Case 03, Dr. Death. Real name Dr. Carl Helfern. Dr. Helfern was arrested after an investigation involving illegal chemical experimentation on civilians. Evidence recovered from the laboratory included experimental toxins, medical records, laboratory equipment, human testing documentation, chemical compounds of unknown origin. The evidence was overwhelming. Dr. Helfern was convicted on numerous charges, including murder, kidnapping, and unlawful human experimentation. He is currently serving his sentence in Blackgate Prison. Correctional reports describe him as highly intelligent and extremely dangerous. Psychological evaluations suggest he remains convinced that his experiments were acts of scientific progress rather than criminal behavior. He has shown no remorse. Archive Case 04, Homicide of Thomas and Martha Wayne. This one isn't just another file. It was one of my first homicide investigations after becoming a detective. I still remember that night. Crime Scene Alley. 2 victims, Thomas Wayne, Martha Wayne, 1 witness, their son, Bruce Wayne. He was just a boy, standing there, trying to understand what had happened. No child should ever have to see that. We collected shell casings, witness statements, fingerprints, ballistics, every piece of evidence we could find. But like too many cases in Gotham, the trail went cold. Years passed. I never stopped thinking about it. Never stopped looking. Then one day, we finally caught the son of a bitch. Joe Chill. The man responsible for murdering Thomas and Martha Wayne. He's exactly where he belongs. Rotting in a cell in Blackgate Prison. He's got 2 more years left on his sentence. Justice came late. Far too late. But it came. I think Thomas and Martha would have wanted that. And I kept the promise I made to Bruce all those years ago. I told him we'd never stop looking. We didn't. Gotham changes. Criminals change. Cases come and go. But evidence remembers everything. That's why we keep these files. Not because the past can be changed, but because the future can learn from it. This is Captain James Gordon, ending recording. GCPD Archives Volume 2. Report number 4, status archived. Closed cases preserved for historical record. Black Lightning number 1. Lightning Strikes, Earth 1. Saga 1, God's Monsters and Mortals, Part 1. Mortals Freeland wasn't like Gotham. It wasn't like Star City either. There were no towering Gothic skyscrapers or glittering financial districts. Freeland was a city that had been forgotten. Factories had closed, neighborhoods had fallen apart, street gangs controlled entire blocks, drug dealers stood on corners without fear. People learned to keep their heads down. They didn't expect heroes. They expected to survive. Years earlier, Jefferson Pierce had been one of Freeland's brightest young men, a gifted student, an incredible athlete, a man who believed education could change lives. His father believed that too. Knowledge, he would tell Jefferson, is the one thing nobody can steal from you. Jefferson carried those words everywhere he went. After finishing college, he returned home instead of chasing fame or fortune elsewhere. Freeland needed teachers. It needed role models. It needed hope. Jefferson became both. For years, he taught students who were surrounded by violence every day. He watched promising children get pulled into gangs. He watched parents lose sons and daughters. He watched good people disappear because criminals ruled the streets. Every day, it became harder to believe that teaching alone was enough. Then everything changed. One rainy evening, Jefferson was walking home when he saw several gang members cornering a teenager in an alley. The boy handed over his backpack. One of the gang members laughed anyway and hit him across the face. Jefferson stepped forward. "That's enough." The gang members laughed. "You want to be next, old man?" Jefferson calmly removed his jacket. "No, I want you to leave." They attacked. The first punch never landed. Electricity exploded from Jefferson's body. Blue-white lightning burst across the alley. The attackers were thrown backward. Jefferson stared at his own hands in disbelief. Electric arcs danced across his fingertips. What? Another bolt erupted without warning. The streetlights shattered. The gang members ran. Jefferson stood alone in the rain. What just happened? Weeks passed. Jefferson experimented in secret. He learned he could generate electricity, control it, channel it, fire bolts of lightning, create electrical fields around himself, even absorb electricity from nearby power sources. He realized he had been born with a rare metagene that had finally awakened under extreme stress. He couldn't explain why, but he knew one thing. If he had this power, he had a responsibility to use it. He designed a black suit reinforced against electrical discharge. A blue lightning bolt stretched across the chest. A mask concealed his identity. Freeland didn't need another frightened citizen. It needed a protector. The newspapers would eventually give him a name. Black Lightning. Black Lightning stood atop a rooftop overlooking Freeland's south side. His investigation had consumed weeks. Every trail led to one man, Tobias Whale, the city's most powerful crime boss. Drugs, extortion, human trafficking, arms dealing. Nothing happened in Freeland without Tobias knowing. Jefferson had tried reaching him directly. Every lead ended the same way. Middlemen, lieutenants, disposable criminals, never Tobias himself. Tonight was different. One of Tobias's drug operations had finally surfaced. Jefferson watched several dealers exchanging cash beneath an abandoned warehouse. At the center stood a heavily tattooed man, Latavius Lala Johnson, a lieutenant who controlled much of Tobias's street-level drug trade. Lala counted stacks of cash while several armed guards watched nearby. One dealer looked nervous. "You sure the boss ain't coming?" Lala smirked. The boss don't need to come. He sends me. The dealer nodded quickly. Right? Suddenly, the lights went out. Every floodlight surrounding the warehouse exploded. Darkness swallowed the block. What happened? Who's there? Blue lightning flashed overhead. For one brief second, everyone saw him, standing on the roof. Electricity surrounding his body. Black lightning jumped. He landed in the middle of the warehouse yard. The impact sent a pulse of electricity through the concrete. Several gunmen were knocked off their feet. One opened fire. Jefferson raised an arm. The bullet struck an electrical field and dropped harmlessly to the ground. The criminals froze. Jefferson's voice echoed through the yard. This ends tonight, Lala laughed. You're just one man. Jefferson smiled. I've heard that before. The fight erupted. Gunmen rushed him from every direction. Jefferson unleashed controlled bursts of electricity, sending attackers sprawling without killing them. One swung a steel pipe. Jefferson caught it. Electricity surged through the metal. The attacker collapsed instantly. Another tried to flee in a truck. Jefferson fired a concentrated bolt into the engine. The vehicle died before it reached the gate. Within minutes, the entire operation was dismantled. Only Lala remained standing, barely. He drew a pistol. Jefferson calmly walked toward him. You work for Tobias Whale. Lala spit blood onto the ground. I ain't telling you nothing. Jefferson grabbed the pistol and crushed it with an electrically charged hand. Where is he? Lala laughed despite his injuries. You think you can reach Tobias? He don't meet people like you. Jefferson's expression hardened. One day, he will. Police sirens approached. Lala smiled. You ain't catching the boss tonight. Jefferson looked toward the flashing lights. He knew Lala was right. Tobias Whale had slipped away once again. Jefferson stepped backward into the shadows. Before disappearing, he looked directly at Lala. Tell Tobias, I'm coming. A bolt of lightning illuminated the sky. When the officers arrived, black lightning was gone. Lala Johnson and the rest of the operation were in police custody. Far across Freeland, inside an elegant office overlooking the city, a massive man in an immaculate white suit stood beside a window. Tobias Whale. One of his lieutenants entered nervously. Lala got arrested. Tobias didn't turn around. And? They say, Black Lightning did it. Tobias remained silent for several moments. Then he smiled. So, Freeland finally has a hero. He slowly turned toward the window again. Heroes don't last long in my city. Outside. Lightning flashed across the night sky. To be continued. End of Black Lightning number 1, Lightning Strikes. Detective Comics number 1, The Birth of the Batman, Earth 2. Saga 1, Gods, Monsters, and Mortals. Part 1. Mortals Gotham City was a city of bright lights by day and long shadows by night. It was a city of businessmen, politicians, socialites, and criminals. Most people believed crime was simply part of living in Gotham. One little boy refused to accept that. Years earlier, Thomas Wayne, Martha Wayne, and their young son Bruce walked home after spending the evening at a theater. Bruce smiled as his father laughed at one of Martha's jokes. I still say you laughed louder than anyone else in the audience, Thomas teased. I did not, Martha replied with a grin. Bruce chuckled. You both did. The family turned into a quiet alley. A man stepped out of the darkness. Wallet? Jewelry? Now. Thomas stepped in front of Martha and Bruce. You don't have to do this. The mugger's hand shook. Then, a gunshot. Another. Thomas Wayne collapsed. Martha screamed. A third shot echoed through the alley. Bruce fell to his knees beside his parents. The killer fled into the night. Young Bruce looked toward the sky as tears streamed down his face. I swear, I'll never let this happen again. Years passed. Bruce traveled the world. He studied criminology, science, medicine, escape artistry, forensics. He climbed mountains, crossed deserts, learned from detectives, mastered boxing, judo, fencing, wrestling, and countless other forms of combat. Every lesson had one purpose, to prepare him for Gotham. When he finally returned to Wayne Manor, Alfred greeted him with a warm smile. Welcome home, Master Bruce. It's good to be back, Alfred. You've grown. Bruce smiled. I certainly hope so. Alfred chuckled. I meant taller. Bruce laughed. I'll take the compliment. That evening, Bruce sat alone in his father's study. He looked around the room. The old books, the family portraits, the grandfather clock. Everything reminded him of the promise he had made. Outside, a bat flew through the open window. It circled the room before landing on a marble bust. Bruce smiled. Well, I suppose subtlety is overrated. He stood. A bat it is. Several weeks later, newspapers exploded with stories. Mysterious bat creature stops jewel thieves. Who is the Batman? Criminals report seeing flying monster. Batman smiled while reading the headlines in the Batcave. They got one thing right. Alfred looked over his shoulder. Which part, sir? The handsome part. There wasn't a handsome part. There should have been. Life in Gotham continued, until another mystery appeared. Several wealthy citizens developed horrifying skin diseases. Doctors couldn't identify the illness. Victims described receiving strange letters before becoming infected. Each letter bore the same signature, Dr. Death. Captain James Gordon addressed reporters outside GCPD headquarters. We believe the individual calling himself Dr. Death is responsible for these attacks. Batman listened from a nearby rooftop. Dr. Death, not exactly a cheerful nickname. That night, Batman investigated the first victim's mansion. Inside, he found shattered laboratory glass, chemical residue, burn marks. Most importantly, a strange crystalline powder. Batman carefully collected a sample. I've seen uglier chemistry experiments. He paused. Actually, no, I haven't. Back at the Batcave, Bruce analyzed the substance. Alfred entered carrying tea. Find anything? Bruce nodded. The powder contains an unstable toxin. Dangerous? Bruce smiled. If someone offered you a cup of it, I'd recommend saying no. Alfred sighed. I appreciate your scientific precision. Following the chemical trail, Batman located an abandoned laboratory beneath Gotham. Rows of strange equipment lined the walls. Bubbling chemicals filled glass containers. Standing at the center of the room was a gaunt man wearing a dark hood and laboratory coat. His face was pale and scarred. His eyes burned with madness. Welcome. I am Dr. Death. Batman stepped forward. I've heard worse introductions. Dr. Death spread his arms. Soon Gotham shall kneel before my genius. Batman glanced around the room. You know, I usually start with hello. Dr. Death snarled. You mock greatness. I mock your decorating skills. Dr. Death threw a glass vial. Batman rolled aside. The vial shattered. Acid hissed across the stone floor. Batman stood, definitely not lemonade. Dr. Death pulled a chemical sprayer from his workbench. Streams of burning toxin shot toward Batman. Batman flipped over the attack and threw a batarang. The weapon struck the sprayer. It exploded in Dr. Death's hands. The scientist screamed. He reached for another chemical. Batman fired his grappling line, yanking the bottle away. You really should stop throwing things. Dr. Death charged with a scalpel. Batman sidestepped. Dr. Death stumbled into his own laboratory table. Glass shattered. Chemical smoke filled the room. Batman tackled him before he could escape. Within moments, Dr. Death was tied securely with rope. Police sirens echoed outside. James Gordon entered with several officers. He stared at the restrained scientist. You got him. Batman nodded. He won't be prescribing anything for a while. Even Gordon couldn't suppress a smile. Dr. Death was taken into custody. His laboratory was dismantled. His victims received treatment using antidotes recovered from his notes. Later that night, Batman stood atop the roof of Gotham City Police Headquarters. Below him, the city sparkled beneath the stars. Alfred's voice came through the portable radio. Another successful evening, sir? Batman smiled. I'd call it a good first chapter. What now? Batman looked across Gotham. Now? We keep this city honest. A police spotlight briefly swept across the rooftops. Batman laughed softly. They're getting warmer. He fired his grappling line. As long as they don't ask for my autograph. He disappeared into the night. Far below, Gotham slept a little safer than it had the night before. End of Detective Comics #1, The Birth of the Batman. Batman Beyond #2, Escape from Arkham, Batman Beyond Timeline. Saga 1, Gods, Monsters, and Mortals, Part 1. Mortals. The Batmobile's turbine engine echoed through the night as Terry McGinnis sped back toward Gotham. Only hours earlier, he had helped Connor Hawke stop the prototype robotic assassin in Star City. The image of the machine's back stayed in his mind. 00. A prototype. If there were more, that problem would have to wait. Gotham had a way of making sure there was never only one problem at a time. As the city skyline came into view, Bruce Wayne's voice crackled through Terry's communicator. "Welcome back." "I'm guessing you didn't call just to say hello," Bruce replied without missing a beat. "No. I've got something." Terry smiled. "I knew it." Bruce brought a series of security feeds onto Terry's visor. "They're coming from the new Arkham Asylum." Terry's smile disappeared. "What happened?" "The alarms went silent 6 minutes ago." The newly rebuilt Arkham Asylum stood on the outskirts of Gotham. Unlike the original asylum, this one was reinforced with steel, automated security systems, and advanced surveillance. It was supposed to be escape-proof. Police cars surrounded the building. Emergency lights flashed through broken windows. Terry landed on the roof. "Bruce, I'm not picking up any life signs in the East Wing. Go inside." The front entrance had been ripped completely off its hinges. Terry stepped into the lobby. Silence. Then, blood. One guard lay motionless against a wall. Another farther down the hallway. Broken security drones littered the floor. Cells had been torn open. Metal bars twisted outward. Terry's voice became quiet. "What happened here?" Bruce studied the live feed from the Batcave. "This wasn't a riot." "No." Terry knelt beside one of the guards. "This was a massacre." He followed the trail deeper into Arkham. Bodies, destroyed equipment, medical carts overturned, long claw marks scored the walls. Something heavy had dragged itself through the corridors. Then Terry found the security terminal. Most of the files had been destroyed. One inmate profile remained open. Dr. Carl Helfern, alias Dr. Death, status escaped. Bruce sighed. "I was afraid of that." Terry looked at the monitor. "The old Batman fought him." Bruce answered. "He stopped being human years ago." The claw marks continued outside Arkham, across abandoned streets, through Gotham's industrial district. Finally, to an abandoned pharmaceutical warehouse. Terry slipped inside. The building smelled of chemicals and decay. Broken laboratory equipment filled the rooms. On one table sat a computer, still running. Terry plugged a cable from his gauntlet into the hard drive. Bruce immediately began downloading the files. Interesting. What? There are messages. Between Helfern and someone named Jack White. Terry frowned. "Who's Jack White?" "I don't know." Bruce continued reading. They were discussing breaking Dr. Death out of Arkham. These messages stopped shortly before tonight. So somebody helped him. Looks that way. As Bruce searched further, a dusty television in the corner continued broadcasting the evening news. Authorities have confirmed that Dr. Death escaped during tonight's attack on Arkham Asylum. Officials also report that 14 unidentified inmates remain at large. Citizens are advised to remain indoors. Terry slowly looked away from the television. 14 more? Bruce answered. Looks like Gotham's about to get a lot busier. Something growled behind him. Low, wet, animalistic. Terry spun around. Standing in the darkness was Dr. Death. The man was barely recognizable. His body had become horribly mutated over the decades. His skin looked like hardened scar tissue mixed with chemical burns. One arm was unnaturally massive. His mouth was filled with jagged teeth. Chemical fluid dripped from his claws. He no longer resembled the scientist Bruce had once arrested. Only the monster remained. Dr. Death smiled. You. Batman? He lunged. Terry barely dodged. Dr. Death slammed through a concrete support pillar. Chunks of cement exploded across the room. Terry fired several batarangs. They barely slowed him. Dr. Death grabbed Terry before he could escape. His teeth clamped onto the armored shoulder of the batsuit. Metal tore apart. Warning symbols flashed across Terry's visor. Left shoulder armor damaged. Dr. Death threw him across the warehouse. Terry smashed into a brick wall. Pain shot through his chest. He gasped. Bruce's voice came over the communicator. Terry, He struggled to breathe. My ribs. Medical warnings flooded the visor. Multiple rib fractures detected, left arm fracture detected. Terry tried standing. His left arm hung uselessly at his side. Dr. Death roared and charged again. Terry knew he couldn't win head-on. He disappeared into the shadows. Dr. Death searched wildly. His heavy footsteps echoed through the warehouse. Terry quietly climbed into the rafters using only his right arm. Every movement hurt. He reached into his utility belt. One taser cartridge, his last chance. Dr. Death looked upward. Too late. Terry fired. The taser struck Dr. Death directly in the chest. Thousands of volts surged through the mutant. Dr. Death convulsed violently before crashing through a laboratory table. The monster lay still, unconscious. Terry didn't wait. He staggered toward a rear emergency exit. The police had surrounded only the front. He slipped into the alley before anyone saw him. He leaned against the wall. "Bruce, I need a pickup. I'm on my way." Several minutes later, the Batmobile stopped beside him. Bruce helped Terry into the passenger seat. "You look terrible." Terry managed a weak grin. "You should see the other guy." Bruce almost smiled. "I intend to." Back in the Batcave, Terry lay on the medical table. Bruce carefully set Terry's broken arm before placing it in a cast. The Bat computer displayed Terry's damaged armor. One shoulder section had been completely destroyed. The television beside the Bat computer interrupted with breaking news. Gotham police have successfully recaptured Dr. Death. The escaped inmate has been returned to the newly reopened Arkham Asylum under maximum security. Bruce folded his arms. Good. Terry looked toward the screen. At least one problem solved. Bruce didn't answer immediately. Instead, he switched channels. Another report appeared. Authorities continue searching for 14 escaped inmates. Their identities have not yet been released. Security at Arkham Asylum is expected to increase significantly following tonight's incident. Silence filled the Batcave. Finally, Terry spoke. "They're still out there," Bruce nodded. "Which means we don't have much time." Terry looked at his damaged Batsuit, then toward Gotham on the Batcomputer's main screen. The city hadn't become safer. If anything, it had just become much more dangerous. Far beneath the rebuilt Arkham Asylum, hidden in an abandoned maintenance tunnel, a shadowy figure shut off a computer monitor. On the screen, one message remained: "Project successful." The figure smiled. They never suspected a thing. The monitor went dark. To be continued. Number 2. Escape from Arkham. The Boy Wonder, Earth 2. Detective Comics number 2, The Boy Wonder, Earth 2. Saga 1, God's Monsters and Mortals, Part 1, Mortals. The rain had finally stopped over Gotham City. For once, the city seemed almost peaceful. Bruce Wayne stood in the study of Wayne Manor, reading the morning newspaper. The Flying Graysons to perform at Haley's Circus. Alfred entered carrying a tray with breakfast. "A busy day ahead, Master Bruce." Bruce folded the newspaper. "A charity fundraiser this afternoon." "And tonight?" Bruce smiled knowingly. "I have another appointment." Alfred nodded. "I suspected as much." That evening, Bruce arrived at Haley's Circus. The big top was packed with families. Children laughed as clowns stumbled across the ring. Acrobats soared through the air. Bruce found his seat near the front. The ringmaster stepped into the spotlight. "Ladies and gentlemen, prepare yourselves for the greatest aerial performers in the world. The Flying Graysons." John Grayson, Mary Grayson, and their young son Dick Grayson swung gracefully from trapeze to trapeze. The crowd erupted into applause. Bruce couldn't help but smile. They're incredible. The family moved with perfect trust in one another. Every leap, every catch, every landing. Dick waved to the audience before climbing for the final act. Behind the scenes, however, another performance was unfolding. Circus owner Mr. Haley stood face to face with local mob boss Tony Zuko. Zuko held out his hand. "My protection money." Haley shook his head. "I've paid enough." Zuko's smile disappeared. "You'll regret that." He walked away. Moments later, one of Zuko's men quietly climbed toward the trapeze rigging. A knife sliced through several support ropes. Above the ring, John Grayson grabbed for the bar. The rope snapped. Mary screamed. The second rope broke. The crowd watched in horror as both acrobats plummeted toward the ground. Bruce shot to his feet. Too late. The tent fell silent. Young Dick landed safely on the opposite platform, turning just in time to see his parents lying motionless below. "Mom? Dad?" He climbed down as quickly as he could, tears streaming down his face. Bruce stood frozen. The scene, the alley, his parents, the gunshots, it all came rushing back. Dick dropped to his knees beside his mother. "No, no." Bruce quietly walked over and rested a hand on the boy's shoulder. "I'm so sorry." Later that night, Batman stood on a rooftop overlooking the circus grounds. Commissioner Gordon had already concluded the falls weren't accidental. Bruce, however, already suspected who was responsible. The next evening, Batman cornered Tony Zuko inside an abandoned warehouse. Zuko laughed. "So you're the Bat everybody keeps talking about." Batman stepped into the light. "You murdered 2 innocent people." "I didn't kill anybody." Batman pulled a severed piece of trapeze rope from his utility. "Your men cut these." Zuko's smile faded. "You can't prove that." Batman threw a batarang, knocking the pistol from Zuko's hand. The mobsters attacked. Batman met them head-on. One by one, they fell. A punch, a throw, a well-placed kick. Within minutes, only Zuko remained. He tried to flee. Batman caught him with his grappling line, pulling him backward onto the concrete floor. The police arrived moments later. James Gordon stepped from his patrol car. Batman handed Zuko over. "He'll be confessing before sunrise." Gordon nodded. "I'll make sure of it." Batman disappeared into the night. Several days later, Bruce Wayne visited Gotham Children's Services. Dick sat alone by a window. He hadn't spoken much since the funeral. Bruce walked over. "Mind if I sit down?" Dick shrugged. "I guess." Bruce sat beside him. "I knew what happened to your parents." Dick looked at him. "You were there." Bruce nodded. "I was." "They were good people." Dick lowered his head. "I don't have anybody now." Bruce was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. "I know what that's like." Dick looked up. "You do?" Bruce smiled sadly. "My parents were taken from me when I was about your age." Dick didn't know what to say. Neither did Bruce. Finally, Bruce asked, "Would you like to come live at Wayne Manor?" Dick blinked. "You mean? With you?" Bruce nodded. "If you'd like." Dick hesitated. "What if I mess something up?" Bruce laughed softly. "Then you'll fit right in." For the first time in days, Dick smiled. A little. A little. Weeks later, Wayne Manor felt different, livelier. Dick explored the massive halls with wide-eyed amazement. "You actually live here?" Bruce grinned. "I keep getting lost myself." Alfred appeared from around the corner. "Master Bruce?" He looked toward Dick. "And this must be Master Dick." Dick extended his hand. "Nice to meet you." Alfred shook it warmly. "The pleasure is mine." Dick looked around again. "So, how many rooms does this place have?" Bruce shrugged. "I've never counted." Dick laughed. "You're kidding. I wish I was." That night, Bruce stood alone in the Batcave. Above him, Dick slept peacefully for the first time since losing his parents. Bruce looked at the costume displayed in its case. "I made a promise once." Alfred stepped beside him. "You're thinking about Master Dick." Bruce nodded. "I know what revenge can do to someone." Alfred folded his hands. "And what will you do?" Bruce looked toward the entrance leading back to the manor. "I'll make sure he grows into a good man." He paused. "And when the time is right, I'll tell him everything." High above the Batcave, Wayne Manor stood quietly beneath the moonlight. For the first time in many years, Bruce Wayne was no longer alone. End of Detective Comics number 2, The Boy Wonder. Batman Beyond number 3, Old Shadows. Batman Beyond Timeline. Saga 1, Gods, Monsters, and Mortals, Part 1, Mortals. 3 days had passed since Dr. Death's escape from Arkham Asylum. 3 days since Terry McGinnis had barely survived. The cracked ribs still hurt every time he breathed too deeply. His left arm remained in a reinforced cast beneath a modified section of the Batsuit. Bruce had insisted he stay home. Terry ignored him. Wayne Manor. The Batcave. Bruce watched as Terry struggled to fasten part of his suit. "I can do it." Bruce folded his arms. "Your medical scans disagree." "I've had worse." Bruce looked at him. "No, you haven't." Terry finally secured the damaged armor over his cast. "The city still got 15 escaped Arkham inmates." Bruce corrected him. "It was 14. Terry pointed toward the Bat computer. "The news updated it this morning." Bruce looked at the screen. A reporter stood outside Arkham Asylum. GCPD officials have now confirmed that 15 inmates remain at large following the recent breakout. Bruce sighed. "So they found another missing prisoner." Terry grabbed his cowl. "Then that's 15 reasons I can't stay here." Bruce looked at the scans of Terry's injuries. "Your ribs aren't healed. My arm isn't either." "I noticed." Bruce wasn't amused. "You shouldn't be fighting anyone." Terry smiled. "I'll try to only fight easy criminals." Gotham City. Night. Rain coated the rooftops. Batman moved slower than usual. Every jump sent pain through his chest. Every landing reminded him his body hadn't recovered. His communicator crackled. GCPD dispatch. Possible homicide in the Diamond District. Terry changed direction. So much for looking for escaped inmates. Police lights reflected across wet pavement. Detectives surrounded another body. Batman watched from above. The victim was dressed in an expensive business suit. Several deep cuts covered his chest. Bruce studied the crime scene through Terry's visor. Those aren't random wounds. They're deliberate. Terry quietly dropped behind the police line after the officers moved away. He examined the body, professional, fast, clean. The victim hadn't stood a chance. He noticed something near the victim's hand. A small steel blade, not a knife. A throwing blade, custom made. Bruce enlarged the image. I've seen that design before. Who? Bruce answered slowly. Brutal. Terry frowned. I thought he was dead. The original is. He fought Dick Grayson for years after Dick became Nightwing. Terry picked up the blade. So this is a copycat. Bruce nodded. Looks that way. Hours later, Batman followed security footage across Gotham. Every camera caught the same figure. Tall, broad shoulders, black tactical armor, face hidden behind a metallic mask. The trail ended at an abandoned train depot. Batman stepped inside. Darkness, silence, then a voice. I was wondering when you'd arrive. A man stepped from the shadows. Unlike the original Brutal, this one wore heavier armor and carried twin combat blades. His mask covered his entire face. He slowly spun one blade in his hand. So, you're Batman, Terry answered. Last time I checked. Brutal tilted his head. You walk differently. Terry remained silent. Injured. Batman didn't respond. Brutal smiled beneath the mask. Good. The assassin attacked first. Fast. Faster than Terry expected. Batman barely blocked the opening strike. Pain shot through his broken arm. Brutal noticed immediately. Left arm. He slashed again. Terry dodged. Another strike. His cracked ribs screamed with every movement. Batman landed a punch. Brutal barely reacted. The assassin answered with an elbow to Terry's chest. Batman staggered backward. Another kick sent him crashing through a stack of wooden crates. The warehouse echoed with splintering wood. Bruce's voice filled the communicator. Terry! He coughed. I'm okay. No, you're not. Brutal slowly approached. I expected more. Batman stood again. He threw several batarangs. Brutal cut everyone from the air. Steel rang against steel. Batman fired his grappling line. Brutal caught it, pulled Terry forward, then drove a knee directly into his ribs. Batman collapsed to one knee. His breathing became uneven. Brutal looked down at him, disappointed. I wanted the Batman. He shook his head. Not some kid dressed up in a costume. He turned toward the warehouse exit. The real Batman would have been worth killing. Batman tried to stand. His body wouldn't cooperate. Brutal reached the doorway. Then, a blue Eskrima stick struck his wrist. One blade clattered across the floor. Brutal turned. So. Another figure stepped from the darkness. Blue emblem across the chest. Black domino mask. Longer hair streaked with gray. Older. Calmer. Still standing tall. Nightwing. Dick Grayson. He twirled the second Eskrima stick in his hand. You picked the wrong city. Brutal narrowed his eyes. I wasn't expecting you. Dick smiled. Most people don't. Brutal charged. Dick met him head on. Unlike Terry, Dick wasn't slowed by injuries. Years of experience showed in every movement. He blocked one strike, countered another, spun behind Brutal. One Eskrima stick struck the assassin's shoulder. The second hit the side of his helmet. Brutal stumbled. Dick swept his legs. The assassin hit the concrete hard. Before he could recover, Dick pinned him to the floor. Police sirens echoed outside. Brutal growled, "This isn't over." Dick replied calmly, "It usually isn't." Terry finally managed to stand. He looked at the older hero. You? Dick helped him stay upright. You look worse than I feel. Terry laughed despite the pain. I doubt that. Dick looked over the damaged batsuit. Bruce let you leave the cave looking like this? He told me not to. Dick smiled knowingly. Sounds familiar. For a brief moment, the two Batmen stood side by side, one carrying the future, the other carrying the past. Dick looked toward Gotham's skyline. I think it's time I stayed in Gotham for a while. Terry looked surprised. You mean, Dick nodded, looks like you could use the help. This far away, inside a dark room, a television replayed footage of Brutal's capture. A shadowy figure quietly switched it off. Another escaped Arkham inmate smiled. The Bat family is getting involved. Excellent. The room fell silent. To be continued. End of Batman Beyond 3, Old Shadows. Batman, All in a Day's Work, Earth 1, Saga 1, God's Monsters and Mortals, Part 1 Mortals. Part 1, The Therapist, months before the Firefly case. Before Batman became a name whispered throughout Gotham's underworld, Bruce Wayne sat in an office overlooking Robinson Park. The room was warm, books lined the shelves, soft music played quietly in the background. Across from Bruce sat Dr. Alicia Hunt, Gotham's newest trauma therapist. She flipped through a file before looking up with a friendly smile. "Mr. Wayne, thank you for coming." Bruce nodded politely. "My assistant insisted. I heard Alfred can be very persuasive. He has decades of experience." That earned a small laugh from Alicia. "So," she closed the file, "I've heard wonderful things about your charitable work." Bruce shrugged. "I try. And I've also read about everything you've been through." Bruce looked toward the window. Silence. Alicia waited. "You don't have to say anything immediately." "I know. Sometimes silence tells me just as much." Bruce smiled faintly. "Then this should be productive." Alicia chuckled. "You've done this before." Bruce nodded. "With one I trust. Dr. Leslie Tompkins?" Bruce looked back at her. "Yes. What makes her different?" Bruce thought for a moment. "She knew my parents. She knew me before." He stopped. Before the alley. Before the promise. Before the mission. Alicia noticed. "You don't have to finish that sentence." Bruce stood. "I think we're done. We've barely started." Bruce put on his coat. "No offense, Doctor. You're probably very good at what you do. But I only really talk to Leslie." Alicia sighed. "I can't help someone who won't let me." Bruce gave a polite smile. "I know." He walked to the door. Just before leaving, Alicia spoke again. "If you ever decide to come back..." "The door's open." Bruce nodded without turning around. "Thank you." The door closed. Alicia looked down at her notes. Under patient progress, she wrote only 3 words. Exceptionally guarded personality. Part 2. Jim Corrigan. That night, Batman watched Gotham from the rooftops. The police scanner remained quiet until officer requesting immediate backup. Corner of Grant Avenue and Kane Street. Multiple armed suspects. Batman fired his grappling gun. Officer Jim Corrigan ducked behind his patrol car as bullets shattered the windshield. Across the street stood several armed members of the Yakuza. One shouted, "The cop dies tonight!" Corrigan checked his revolver. Only 2 rounds remained. He muttered to himself, "Not ideal." One gangster stepped closer with a katana. Another raised a pistol. Then, every light on the street suddenly went out. The criminals looked around nervously. What happened? A batarang sliced through the gunman's weapon. Another struck a streetlight, sending broken glass raining onto the pavement. Batman dropped from the darkness. His cape spread like enormous wings. One Yakuza member whispered, "The Bat." Batman moved before anyone could react. He disarmed the first swordsman with a sharp strike to the wrist. The katana clattered away. A second attacker rushed him. Batman ducked beneath a swing and threw the man into a parked motorcycle. 2 more surrounded him. Batman spun, using his cape to blind one while sweeping the other's legs. Corrigan watched in disbelief. "You've got to be kidding me." The remaining gangsters opened fire. Batman disappeared into the darkness between muzzle flashes. One by one, the gunfire stopped, then the shouting, then the fighting. Silence. The streetlights flickered back on. Every Yakuza member lay unconscious. Batman stood beside Corrigan. "You all right?" Corrigan holstered his revolver. "I was doing fine." Batman looked at the shattered patrol car. "Were you?" Corrigan smiled. "I've been better." Batman handed him a small evidence bag. Inside were financial records taken from one of the gang leaders. "They're moving weapons through Gotham Harbor." Corrigan looked surprised. "How'd you get these?" Batman simply turned away. "You ask too many questions." He fired his grappling line. Before disappearing, Corrigan called after him, "Thanks." Batman paused only long enough to answer, "Just doing my job." Then he vanished into the Gotham skyline. Corrigan looked upward. I still don't know if he's a man or something else. Part 3 Epilogue. Months later, the final offer, the floating headquarters of Oswald Cobblepot. Outside the private office, Batman stood alone. His cape swayed with the movement of the ship. So much had happened since those early nights. Firefly, the Huntress, Jacob Packer, Black Mask's assassin contract, Electrocutioner, King Kraken. Brutal fights, long investigations, countless criminals. Every step had brought him here. Batman looked at the heavy wooden office doors. His internal thoughts were calm. No more middlemen, no more chasing shadows. Cobblepot, you're out of places to hide. He clenched his fist, stepped forward, and with one powerful kick, crash! The doors exploded inward. Batman crossed the threshold. The hunt for the Penguin had reached its turning point. End of Batman, all in a day's work. GCPD Report, Volume 2, Number 4.2, Case File, The Night of the Yakuza. Earth 1, Gotham City Police Department Evidence Recording. Recording Officer, Officer Jim Corrigan. Authorized by Commissioner Gillian B. Loeb. Classification, Internal Evidence Reorganization Report. My name is Officer Jim Corrigan. Badge number 417. This recording is being made under the authorization of Commissioner Loeb. Captain James Gordon is currently away on an assignment outside the precinct, so Commissioner Loeb has assigned me to reorganize several older case files and place the evidence into the proper order. I figured I might as well record everything while I'm doing it. A folder is opened. Case designation. The Night of the Yakuza. This incident occurred several months before Batman became a regular sight in Gotham. The responding officer, me. The incident began with reports of multiple armed individuals believed to be members of the Yakuza. The suspects cornered me on Kane Street after I interrupted what appeared to be an illegal weapons exchange. They were heavily armed. Handguns, automatic rifles, several traditional Japanese swords. I requested immediate backup. Backup never arrived before him. A photograph slides across a desk. Evidence item 1. Several damaged firearms recovered from the suspects. Every firearm shows signs of precise impact damage. Triggers destroyed, slides bent. None of the damage matches conventional police equipment. Our forensic division concluded the weapons were disabled by sharpened metal projectiles. We never recovered those projectiles. A second folder opens. Evidence item 2. Recovered katana. The blade contains fingerprints belonging to one of the Yakuza members. The weapon also has a fresh fracture near the guard. Judging by the break, someone disarmed the suspect with significant force. I witnessed that personally. A small plastic evidence bag is lifted. Evidence item 3, financial documents. The papers contain shipping schedules, dock numbers, bank account transfers, and coded payments. The information led to several arrests connected to illegal weapons trafficking. When I asked Batman where he got the paperwork, he declined to answer. Not surprising. The suspects themselves were transported to Blackgate Prison after receiving medical treatment. None reported seeing Batman clearly. The statements were interesting. One witness claimed, open quote, it wasn't human, close quote. Another, open quote, it disappeared into smoke, close quote. Another insisted, open quote, it had wings, close quote. I personally disagree. I saw enough to know he wasn't flying. He was using rooftops. He just happened to move faster than anyone I've ever seen. A photograph is picked up. This image shows the patrol vehicle involved. The windshield was destroyed by gunfire. The driver's side door sustained multiple impacts. The vehicle was written off. I wasn't exactly thrilled about the paperwork. One thing worth mentioning, the Yakuza usually avoid drawing attention to themselves. Launching an attack on a Gotham police officer in the middle of the street. That wasn't normal. Whether they were sending a message or something, I still don't know. As for Batman, I've heard every opinion possible. Some officers think he's a menace. Others think he's a vigilante making our jobs harder. I'm somewhere in the middle. I don't know who he is. I don't know why he does what he does. But I know one thing. If he hadn't shown up that night, I probably wouldn't be making this recording. The folder closes. Evidence has now been reorganized into the proper archive, cross-referenced with organized crime investigations. Copies have been forwarded to major crimes. This concludes the report. End recording. GCPD archive status closed. Primary Officer Jim Corrigan. Evidence archived and reorganized. Current status, Yakuza cell dismantled. Batman Beyond number 4. White Industries, Batman Beyond Timeline. Saga 1, Gods, Monsters, and Mortals, Part 1, Mortals. The Batcave was unusually quiet. Terry McGinnis stood in front of the Bat computer, staring at Gotham's map. 15 red markers blinked across the city, each representing one of the inmates still missing after the Arkham Asylum breakout. Bruce Wayne sat nearby, reviewing medical scans. "They're not better," Bruce said. "I wasn't expecting them to be," Terry replied. Bruce enlarged the scans of Terry's chest and left arm. 3 cracked ribs, a fractured left arm. You shouldn't even be thinking about going into the field. Terry smiled beneath the pain. "And yet, here I am." Bruce looked at him for a long moment. "You remind me of someone." "I'll take that as a compliment." Bruce didn't answer. Instead, he pulled up another screen. "I've already called for help." Terry raised an eyebrow. "You did what?" Before Bruce could answer, footsteps echoed through the cave. Connor Hawke descended the staircase first, dressed in his futuristic Green Arrow uniform with his bow slung across his back. "Morning," Terry laughed. "It's 2 in the morning." Connor shrugged. "Morning enough." Another figure followed him, Dick Grayson, Nightwing. His black and blue suit showed its age, but so did the man wearing it. His hair was streaked with gray, yet he still carried himself with the confidence of someone who had spent a lifetime fighting crime. Dick folded his arms. "Bruce told us you needed backup." "I said I was fine," Bruce answered immediately. "And I ignored that." Connor smirked. "Good call." The 3 heroes spread across Gotham before dawn. Their objective was simple: locate one of the 15 escaped inmates before another innocent person got hurt. Hours passed. Nothing. No sightings. No confirmed leads. Only dead ends. Connor landed beside Terry on a rooftop. "You ever notice criminals never escape somewhere convenient?" Terry chuckled. "Every night." Nightwing joined them. Bruce's latest scans aren't showing any movement from the escapees. Before anyone could respond, Terry's communicator activated. GCPD dispatch. Reports of multiple assaults near Coventry District. Witnesses describe one suspect defeating several armed men without speaking. Connor frowned. "Doesn't sound like an escaped inmate?" Dick's expression changed. "It might." Minutes later, the 3 heroes reached the scene. Several gang members lay unconscious throughout an abandoned warehouse. Concrete pillars were cracked. Steel doors hung from broken hinges. Someone incredibly strong had been there. Then they heard footsteps. A tall man stepped into the room, orange and black armor, tiger-striped mask, twin tonfas hanging from his belt. Connor whispered, "Bronze Tiger." Terry looked at Dick. "I thought he retired." Dick nodded slowly. "He did." Benjamin Turner had once been one of the world's deadliest assassins. Years earlier, he abandoned that life. He became a hero, helped people, worked beside some of the greatest fighters on Earth. Seeing him here, none of it made sense. Dick stepped forward. "Ben?" Bronze Tiger didn't respond. "It's me." "Nothing, Benjamin." The assassin slowly raised his head. His eyes looked empty, emotionless. Without warning, he charged. Connor fired an arrow. Benjamin caught it in midair, snapped it in half. Terry flew forward. Bronze Tiger sidestepped and slammed an elbow into Terry's ribs. Pain exploded through Terry's chest. He stumbled backward. Connor entered next, striking with his bow. Benjamin blocked every attack. Nightwing joined the fight. Unlike Terry and Connor, Dick knew Benjamin's style. Every movement, every stance, every weakness. Still, something wasn't right. Benjamin wasn't improvising. He fought like a machine. Perfect. Predictable. Dick narrowly avoided a spin kick. As Benjamin turned, Dick noticed something attached behind his right ear. A tiny metallic device. "Bruce." Dick activated his communicator. "Benjamin has something implanted." Bruce immediately zoomed the image from Terry's visor. "It's a microchip." Connor ducked beneath a punch. "A tracker?" Bruce shook his head. "No, I think it's controlling him." Dick's eyes narrowed. "Then let's remove it." Benjamin rushed Terry again. Terry blocked high. Connor swept low. Benjamin jumped over the sweep, exactly as Dick expected. Nightwing spun behind him. One precise strike from an Eskrima stick hit the side of Benjamin's neck. The second struck the device. Crack! The microchip broke free. It clattered across the warehouse floor. Benjamin froze. His eyes rolled back. He collapsed unconscious. Silence filled the room. Connor carefully checked Benjamin's pulse. Alive. Terry picked up the damaged microchip. Bruce enlarged the image through Terry's visor. Tiny lettering had been engraved onto the circuitry. Terry read it aloud. Made by White Industries. Connor looked confused. Never heard of them. Dick folded his arms. I have. You have? Only recently. Bruce's voice became unusually serious. White Industries incorporated a few days ago. No history. No known executives. No public headquarters. Connor looked at the chip. So someone creates a company, and suddenly retired heroes start acting like assassins? Bruce answered quietly, I don't think Benjamin is the only one. The three heroes looked at one another. Somewhere in Gotham, someone had found a way to turn heroes into weapons, and they had just discovered the first piece of the puzzle. To be continued. End of Batman Beyond #4, White Industries.